we live? I am reading The Awakening Letters. These are varieties of spiritual experiences in the life after death. These letters are transmitted through Lady Cynthia, Lady Sandy, Cynthia Sandy she is. She and Rosamond Lehman both had daughters who died very early, tragically. And these letters recount the afterlife experiences of their daughters, Sally and Patricia, also called Pat, who are on the other side and transmitting messages from the people they meet. I am now in the second part of this book, which is entitled Miscellaneous Letters from Communicators, which we have selected for their variety and we hope their exceptional interest. This was published in 1979. They worked together for 30 years on these letters and transmissions. And this one is entitled The Executioner's Island. When you were at the hotel on the island, I saw and spoke to several wraiths who were very most unhappy and horrified. I discovered that there had been executioners, and as their lives were sought by all the townsfolk, they went in fear of their lives, and after their lives, which all seemed to have ended violently, they continued in this state. I said, "What are you afraid of?" "Everything," was the answer, "excepting you. You bring us such a sense of calm." Rather pleased, I went on, "Have you never left this island?" No, we can't leave it. If we do, we shall be killed horribly." "But you are already dead. You can't suffer bodily pain anymore." They looked at us in astonishment and said, "But we are alive, we have bodies." "Yes, so have I pointed out, but I have been dead for 18 months. They looked at me aghast. One of them bravely asked if I could help them to escape from the island. I said yes, at once, and greatly to their astonishment, we floated out through the ceiling. I heard one say, "You must be right, you know, I could never have done this before." On landing, they caught sight of a car on the wharf and asked me what it was. I realized that they were still living in the 15th century. So I explained briefly that it was a kind of travelling coach. They looked puzzled and asked where the horses were, as they saw it move without any. I tried to tell them that it was now several centuries since their death in the body, but they frankly refused to believe a word of it. So I said, "Well, go off and find out for yourselves." Coming back a little later, they clung to me and said they'd seen no one they knew. The whole place was changed and no one spoke to them. I explained that they were invisible to those in the body, which being now in their spirit body. But they couldn't take it in, and kept on reverting to their old lives. Then suddenly one of them stood up and groaned, "Look, look, there's Alexis." And looking in that same direction, I saw a man who might have belonged to their period. He came towards us and was, on recognizing them, he said with horror, You here? I thought I'd left you behind forever." My party were cowering in terror by this time, and I was trying to shield them. I asked the stranger what he had against them. "Against them? They're executioners. I was one of their victims." "Don't worry," I replied. "They are now your victim. Look at them." And with that he laughed and said, "Yes, it's all over, really. It was just a sense of the old bitterness. Now it has passed, and I will help them." Which he proceeded to do, and gaining courage, they left me to follow him. 2 letters from Joe, Cynthia's brother, Sir Alvary Gascoigne. The Tycoon. So I asked Pat what happens to the millions of people who come over with no one in their entourage to help. Her reply was, "Come and see." So I found myself in a rather rich house with an old man just passing out of his earth body. He had been a real tycoon in industry and very rich. His poor old wife couldn't face life without him. He'd always done everything, and now she was alone. I sensed that they had no children, and he'd been so successful that he'd alienated most of his contemporaries. And there he stood outside his body, a grey, frightened individual, completely alone. I went up to him and spoke some sort of welcome, to show he wasn't quite alone. He heard me, looked around the room and merely grunted. "How the devil did you get in here?" I laughed and tried to explain, pointing to his corpse on the bed. "What have you done to me?" was his next remark. "Have you killed me?" "No," I repeated. "You must remember your illness." He nodded. "Well, now that you have died, according to the doctor. But you see, there is no death, only a change of body. How do you feel?" "I don't know who you are, and you have no right to be here. Get out." "Of course, if you say so," I replied, "but then you will be quite alone." "No, I didn't mean that. You can stay. You are only a voice anyhow." And then he began to see me. "Oh, you're not only a voice, you're a man." "Well, how do you see me and my wife?" And my wife doesn't. Can you tell me that?" "Yes," I replied. "You are an etheric now. You have left your physical body forever." "That can't be true. This is just a dream, and a very worrying one too. I'll wake up in a moment." Then he went over to the bed and tried to overlay his body, but it was cold and repellent. "Can't do it," he said in desperation. "Well, come and help me, whoever you are. Anyway, I'm not dead." But he was so exhausted that I was able to persuade him to lie on the sofa in his own room, and in a moment he was asleep. Later. I want to go back to my Tycoon, whom I left asleep on the sofa. I knew he would wake before his funeral and need help, so I kept a tab on him, as Pat calls it, and sent out messages to find out his condition. When people began to come into his room, I feared he would wake, and so he did. Looking up suddenly, he saw me and said, "Hello, you here again? Who the devil are you?" "Not the devil," I assured him. "Just a guide to explain and help you to deal with this new situation." "What situation?" "Oh yes, I know. You said I was dead." "Well, that's a good joke. I'm fine, simply grand. Better than I've been for years. I haven't woken up as fresh as this for a long time." "Wouldn't you like to come outside and have a breath of fresh air?" I suggested. "No, I prefer to stay here. As you say, I'm dead. Then I'll prove to the wife that I'm nothing of the sort." "Well," I said, "go and try. But remember, you are in a different body now, and she can't see you." "Well, that's as maybe. I don't feel ghostly or airy-fairy. I'll have a try." So saying, he got up and started to walk out of the room, swaying badly. I took his arm. "What's wrong with me? I've not been drinking, but I can't walk steady." I explained that he had to learn to walk with his new body. "Oh, stop talking all that trash. Here I am, just as I was in my old pyjamas. There's no change." "Well, go on and see," I urged. The door was shut. He seized the handle and tried to turn it, but his hand slipped off the polished surface, and the effort he made sent him through the door. That shook him. The stairs were the next obstacle. He held on to me and floated down quite comfortably. "Like sliding down the banisters as a boy," he murmured. We came to his wife's sitting room. Again, the door offered no barrier, but he began to feel uncertain of himself. "Hattie," he called as he saw his wife writing letters and crying as she did so. "Hattie, don't cry, love. I'm all right." No movement, no reply. He went closer. "Hattie, don't you hear me?" He shook her arm, or tried to, but again he could get no grip. He yelled into her ear, but she took no notice. He became exasperated. "Has she gone daft?" was his next question. "No, but you've changed. You've passed through 2 doors. You floated down the stairs, and now you expect her to hear your voice, which has no material vibration. Go up to that large mirror and breathe on it. Can you see your breath? No, but what am I to do? Thank goodness you are here. I can see you, and you can see me and hear me, otherwise I'd go mad. Do you know or care for anyone who has already died? I asked him. Oh yes, plenty. But how do I reach them? By thinking of them. Your thought calls them. That doesn't seem sensible, but I'm in a fair-do. I'll follow your instructions. I urged him out into the garden. I wanted to get him away from his weeping wife. There were some chairs under a tree, and I said, sit down and think. He sat, but not on the chairs. He floated above them and complained that I'd put one of those damned air cushions under him. All the same, he was quieter, and he soon began to think of his old friends. But there was George, who died last year. No, he had a terrible illness. He couldn't be alive now. I said, he is. Just think of him and call him. So he did. George, this is silly, but I'd be right glad to see you. And in a few seconds the form began to appear of a quite healthy, middle-aged man. Oh, George, he gasped, how did you get here? I heard your call, was the simple answer. Have you come over too, Rob? Well, that's great. And for a moment the two old friends compared notes and were so relieved to find each other. I thought I could leave them, but Pat said, no, you've got to see Rob asleep first, then you can go. Their conversation rumbled on, Rob becoming calmer and more content, and eventually he slept. I turned to George and said, what about you? Are you an established etheric? Well, not quite, but I'm getting accustomed. I look after him. Thank you for looking after and helping old Rob. You know, he's not a bad sort, really. Isle of Man disaster. I know you're wondering why in the world and throughout the world you are having so many catastrophes. Don't you see the answer? The world has gone completely, or almost completely, materialistic. They worship money and power on this plane, and on the lowest level, and so to break their mad rush, groups of people have to be withdrawn suddenly, so as to shock those who remain into some sort of fear or questioning state of mind. I was in Douglas when this awful thing happened, and it was terrific. And if seen from your side only, it was horrific. But there was another side. Flo was there in charge of the children, and she got them away with a rapidity that had to be seen to be understood. She literally ripped off their etheric bodies, like shelling peas, as she put it. Children can be so amazed by being shown a vision that they are quite impervious to a physical pain. They allow their consciousness to flow into the exciting beauty, which is flung within scope of their vision. And while this moment lasts, the bodies are separated, and Flo took them all far away from the scene in the twinkling of an eye. But for the anxious parents, it was quite another story. I went with a young couple in search of a child of 4 or 6, who'd been left in the children's playroom perfectly happy, while they sauntered off elsewhere. Then it happened. Their first thought was the child, and they separated and rushed back by different routes. The mother got there first and found the child's body, and in a wave of deep emotion passed out of her own body almost at once, and was able to follow the tiny trail of the child's vibration and catch up with Flo's party, including her own child. She had felt the burning, suffocating power of the fire, but her intense agony over the child had made her indifferent to it, and so suddenly it ceased, and she was free, following a trail that only her finer body could detect. Florence Nightingale, who was Cynthia's first cousin, twice removed, her mother's first cousin. It seems as if she might be the Flo. Flo welcomed her at once and placed her own child in her arms. saying, "This is lovely. Now you are together again, for always." The woman was dazed and delighted beyond words at finding the child well and happy, and saw no change in herself or the child. "Now we must go and find Daddy," was her first reaction, after the relief from his intense anxiety had passed. But here Flo, or one of the helpers, intervened with, "No, you must stay here with the child. Your husband will join you here. We shall be finding him." So content for the moment and utterly exhausted by the emotion and all they had been through, both she and the child fell asleep. Tomorrow I'll tell you how we found their father. I'll stop here for now and wish you a good 11th of April. It's a Saturday.